Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chelsey O'Brien and I'm one of the curators here at ACMI. Firstly, I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional owners on the land in which we are gathered, the people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and I'd also like to acknowledge any other First Peoples who might be here with us today. I'm so delighted to be able to welcome you all today to the very wonderful Deborah Kelly to ACMI. We're so thrilled to have been able to reopen our doors to the public and so thankful that borders were able to reopen so that we were able to bring Deborah down from Sydney. Deborah Kelly is of course the artist behind our current Gallery 3 exhibition, The Gods of Tiny Things. Deborah is a Melbourne-born, Sydney-based artist whose works have been shown around Australia and in the Biennales of Singapore, Sydney, Tarawara, Venice and many more. Her practice encompasses collage, installation, events and performance. Her projects are often collaborative and are concerned with the lineages of representation, politics and history in public exchange. Her newest works experiment with models of sustained creative collaboration between strangers. Deborah's The Gods of Tiny Things is a kaleidoscopic video which unleashes a vivid collage of animated figures and landscapes cut free from the pages of old magazines and encyclopedias. Created at Collage Camp on the beautiful Huron country, the visual and musical collaborations, the work really explores the threats of extinction, of the climate crisis, the tools of colonialism, the global political shift to the right, while conversely reveling in the hectic pleasures and desires of life itself. Deborah Kelly, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. Okay, I thought I wanted to get started just talking about the sort of really visually Moorish nature to your work. You've really provided such a feast for the eyes in these incredible animations. Can you tell us about where the work, how did it come about? Where did the idea come from?
Well, do you know what? Chelsey ran these questions past me yesterday, but I was so excited I couldn't listen. So, so it's a big surprise to me that you're asking me that. How it actually happened was that Bundanon Trust, which is the amazing artists centre on beautiful Huron country near Nowra, asked me to make a work for their festival and the Live Works Festival. Is that what it's called? Sightworks, sorry. Sightworks Festival. And because I'd been to Bundanon a few times and it's so extraordinarily beautiful, I strongly recommend any artists here to apply for their residencies. It's just an absolutely wonderful place to be. It was gifted to the nation by Arthur Boyd. Anyway, they invited me to propose something, and I had previously run this very kind of temporary and contingent collage camp there, and it was some of the most fun 5 days of my entire life. And I thought, let's do that again, but with a task in mind. So the first time, I'm sorry this is such a long answer.
No, I love it.
So the first time, it was because I ran this collage workshop for 9 solid months for the Biennale of Sydney, and 80 people overall worked in teams making these very, very elaborate collages. But at the end of those 9 months, we had cut out tens of thousands of images and thought about them and talked about them and cherished them. And in the artwork, we only ended up using thousands of images. So it meant that there were thousands upon thousands of material, wonderful elements that we had cut collectively over all these months. And I was like, I can't own this stuff. I don't own it. We made it collectively. What can be done with it? So I just actually asked Bundanon if I could do a collage camp there so that I could invite all the people from those Biennale workshops to come and just play with the leftover stuff, because I couldn't throw it away and I couldn't keep it. You know, it was like a hot potato. So I got to share it. So I did a general call out, and like 20 people, I think, said, great, let's do that. So we had this collage camp and just played with collage in these giant rooms with a big grand piano in it. And one of the people who'd been involved in the big Biennale collage workshop that went for 9 months is Lex Lindsay, who's up in the corner, and he kept on playing these amazing improvised compositions on the grand piano while we were doing collage, and like for days on end, and every night we had a dinner party, and I was like...
Sounds awful. Please.
Everyone was like, this is the best fun we've ever had. So when a couple of years later, Bundanon said, what would you like to do? I was like, collage camp. I definitely want to do collage camp again. And they're like, okay, so I did a call out, and it was a bit more structured, obviously. But Lex was one of the people who came again, and the plan was to make an animated film, because I'd started making animations from my collages, and I thought it would be really fun to do that with other people. So yeah, everybody thought that would be fun. And people applied. That was the hard part. I had to call for applications, which I didn't really want to do, because that means you have to reject people.
Of course.
And all these amazing people applied. I was like, oh God, I'm never doing this again. But anyway, all these amazing people came together, and we spent the week listening to things and making music together, and Lex playing with the piano and chopping up all these terrible old racist, imperialist encyclopedias, you know, stabbing them and gleefully gutting them, and then from their remains constructing a world we could bear to live in. So
yeah, beautiful. I'm so glad that you actually ended on that point, because this is something that we actually spoke about last night. But in your collage work specifically, but in your practice, you do seem to do this thing where you kind of take, you know, whether that be archived books or, you know, shells that you found on the beach, you take these materials and you really kind of, you transform them and you kind of give them new life. And it seems to me something that you've been doing for a while. And particularly this notion of the books being your sort of personal archive that you've collected for a number of years. Can you sort of elaborate more on your use of collage in your work?
Do you know what? Somebody said to me a few days ago something that I found quite startling, and I'll just repeat it as a way into that question.
Sure.
And that was, I can't remember who it was. Somebody said, you know, your work is so Catholic. I'm like, really? How? And they said it's because of that intense attention to materiality, but also the quotidian repetition of the miracle of transubstantiation, where a thing undergoes a kind of ritual and becomes an entirely other thing, kind of a holy thing. So
yeah, that's a really beautiful kind of
I was very taken by that reading of my work, especially given that my current work is that I'm founding a religion.
That's right, which I can't wait to get to. I've got some questions for you on that later. And then going back to the collage camps, can you tell us a little bit more about sort of the importance of these, and also like, how did you direct or facilitate these events?
So one of my sisters is here, so she will probably attest that I'm quite bossy, but I try really hard not to be bossy in the collage camps. So maybe I set a provocation, but partly the whole thing about collaborating with people, especially people you don't know very well or at all, is that they take the work places you couldn't have thought of. With the collage camp at Bundanon, this is actually a picture of a collage camp in Denmark, a different one. But two of the people who came from Japan.
Oh, wow.
To the workshop.
Yeah.
Especially, like all the way from Tokyo to Bundanon.
Amazing.
And they brought with them sensibilities and materials that, were so extremely outside of my thinking process and my conscious understanding of the materials and stuff. So it's just really a way to not know about the work, not know too much, so that it unfolds in real time.
Yeah, sure.
And becomes something of its own. We're not just, like I knew we were making a film because nobody is going to give you funding and infrastructure if you say, can I please just invite people to come and hang out and we'll think of something?
Yeah.
Like nobody will let you do that.
Yeah.
So I had to set some parameters and some provocation because there was a theme to the festival. So I'd actually named it before anything had happened. The festival was about the microscopic worlds. So
the gods of tiny things, very fitting. And what was sort of some of the other activities that you got up to as part of the camp? Like obviously the dinners, but you were talking about the poetry readings and that sort of thing.
So I find, especially when people don't know each other very well.
Of course. Icebreakers.
But also, when you're making art, the kind of flow state that is quite difficult to get to because, your bathroom needs cleaning and the grout especially and blah, 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 blah. It's so hard to get to that place where you're making art, and when you're sitting around with a lot of people you don't hardly know, it's very easy to just be chatting, kind of finding out who each other are and positioning yourselves and stuff. And all those things, I understand that they're important, but they are a big impediment to getting to flow state and making art together. So it's kind of a psychological trick in a way, but it also is a way to infect and inflect the process with the kinds of intellectual and poetic and literary flavors and intentions that I'm hoping to bring to the group. So reading to people both makes people feel very safe in a way, but it also means that you can just walk through the door into a flow state because you can't chat. You just have to, it's a paradox because it's kind of distracting being read to, but it also helps you really concentrate. So it just really helps people get somewhere with their hands and their minds and hearts all going, and their ears and their eyes. So it brings you to a state of kind of extreme alertness as well as satisfaction and safety. So
it's a perfect way to start a
exactly.
college camp. Yeah.
So and I try to share the readings so that people step up and read to each other, or for instance if you lax you go and play the grand piano.
Of course. Wow, that sounds like such a lovely, warm space to be coming into and then sitting down and getting to play with all these beautiful pictures. What a fun time.
And we also watched Miyazaki in the night time, and
yeah, great.
We listened to poetry and we listened to a whole lot of stories from growing up Aboriginal in Australia. And one of the women there, Jo Albany, who made the very significant opening and closing characters of the work, she's a Kalkadoon woman. But she was working with Yuin people at that time, and she sang us Kookaburra, in Yuan,
Wow. Oh, how special.
which had, and Yuan, like so many Aboriginal languages, has just been retrieved from the invasion's attempt to eradicate it. So it has just been put together piece by piece, and now you can sing the whole of Kookaburra in that language, that local language. So that was incredibly moving and precious to have that as part of our intellectual milieu and our emotional milieu, you know, to witness that.
Yeah, that sounds so arresting and moving, and just, like a really special opportunity that you're able to bring to everyone. Well, I'm glad you also giving me these great segues. So you were paying some attention last night, so that's very good. The characters in the work are such a treat. They're so visually arresting, and you know, you can watch the work several times and pick up new details about the characters and the backgrounds, of course, as well. But can you tell us a little bit more about the characters and how they developed?
Well, there are like 40 characters or something.
There's a lot, yeah, there's a lot.
How long have you got?
Well,
I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this character.
Yeah.
So this character is made out of a, what's that word that means a photograph taken through a microscope? Microscopy?
Yes.
So that skirt of that character is a cell.
Wow.
From a 60s Time Life book.
Of course.
Yeah. But look how beautiful it is.
It's
and
stunning.
the arms and right up to the mouth are part of an underwater plant, I think, and it's shooting. So it's you know, parthenogenetically making another plant.
Wow.
But you can see, so she has a little snake around her waist, and the snakes, of course, for me, carry a lot of different kinds of freight, as well as a handy belt.
Very good.
Because, you know, the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets says that St. Patrick didn't actually push the snakes into the sea. What he pushed into the sea was the last of the goddess worshippers, and their symbol was a snake.
Right, so they took the snakes with them.
Yeah, well, that's how the snakes were eradicated from Ireland.
Yeah.
So the snake is that snake, as well as Freud's snake, of course. And a handy belt, as I mentioned. And that is 9th century Chinese fire from a wonderful painting of a sacking of a city. But of course, in Australia, fires, you know, it's hard to remember that it can be metaphorical when it is so literal for us. It's threat and it's promise. Oh, okay, go on.
Got one more character.
Oh, okay. She's also dancing.
Yeah, and with some great shoes.
Yeah, and some really fantastic spurs, which are made out of ancient Croatian gold work, of course.
Of course.
And those are Imam's legs. You know, the model Imam who was married to David Bowie? Yeah, that's her legs.
Wow. So, you talk about, I've got this great photo of you coming up, which you sent me last night.
Oh, yeah. It's not just me.
It's not just
It's me and that friend who's there.
Oh, amazing. So you talk about the importance of music in the Gods of Tiny Things being the bones of the work. And you've also mentioned previously that you really start with the music as the beginning point. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about this and really significance of music across your practice. And of course, this incredible photo, which you're welcome, everyone.
So this is me and Letitia, who's here in the green t-shirt, when we were DJs in the 80s. So, And I've just, I think, recently realised that the 80s is a long time ago now. And like saying to young people that you're a DJ in the 80s makes you sound like, I don't know, like I was in the trenches in the First World War. So yeah, we were DJs, and we had a club that ran for 10 years, and we're all music fanatics. So I listen to music all day long.
Yeah, sure.
And I think because I don't really know how you make films, I didn't go to film school, I didn't even go to art school. So I pay a lot of attention to the music in films, and I thought that would help me structure them. So I always start with the music, and the film is made to the music.
Right.
While trying not to be a video clip.
Yes, of course, because there's a delicate balance to that as well. And of course, you know, this idea of collaboration is something we've sort of spoken about before. You've worked with animators, musicians, of course, the very wonderful Lex, as well as the Collage camp. How significant is collaboration in your practice?
Very.
Good answer.
Yeah, I make some things completely by myself, kind of, but because I often start with collage, it's made out of other people's images, so it's like forced collaboration in a way, as well as shared and voluntary collaboration.
Yeah. You're almost giving part of you're kind of giving yourself into this collaborative process and enjoying what's coming out of it, even when you're working on your own.
Yeah, kind of. Although in the since we have had the big lockdowns, it's been quite a lot harder to collaborate. Although Lex and I are involved in a great big collaboration now, and we've been doing it mainly over Zoom, which has been horrendous.
Yeah, I think we can all attest to Zoom nightmares.
Yeah, but at the same time as horrendous, a total lifesaver.
Of course.
So it's hard, complicated. But yeah, I love working with people because they have amazing ideas, and I love not knowing what I'm doing. I love the work finding its own way. You know, it's not like the other person knows about the work in advance. We figure it out together, and it's something neither of us could have cooked up alone. And you know, a bigger collaboration can be even more extraordinary. So the great big Biennale project that Lex and I were involved with, and Letitia was one of our readers actually, in fact there's several people here who were involved in one way or another. That involved about 100 people, and the work is teeming with ideas. And part of making that work was to show how much power we can have collaborating creatively. You know, that our powers are amplified and not diminished by sharing creative intensity and intention. So
yeah, that's such a beautiful way to think about collaboration, I think. And speaking of, we do have the very wonderful Lex Lindsay in the building. He is, of course, the composer of the score of The Gods of Tiny Things. I'm wondering if you can just come down to the microphone just here. I just was hoping, while you're in the building, can you talk to us a little bit more about the score and how that sort of developed with the work?
Yeah, so as Deborah was saying, it was a site-specific work made at Bundanon for Bundanon. So it was very important to us that the music was made, because that whole process, College Camp, was really about generating the pieces that then Deborah would form into the final thing. So it was important that the music was generated as part of that hive mind process. So there's that amazing grand piano in the space, and the thing about that space, which is an incredible space, it's very open to the elements. this big education centre at Bundanon, and you see the river and you see the grass and you see. But the thing about being that open to the elements is that the piano is mouldy and warped, and quite a damp piano. And I know you should never blame your tools, but I was spending a week trying to get to know this piano and really having trouble making friends with this particular piano and trying different things, and sort of we weren't gelling. It wasn't happening. And then I think it was the last day we decided, screw it, let's throw the books in the piano. So we took the offcuts from the collages that we've been making and a number of the old magazines and encyclopedias, and we laid them on the strings of the piano, and it began to take on this completely different sound. And as you'll hear in the, we turned a piano into a kind of a sitar. And you were able to weave the pages through the strings to the point that if you played it enough, it would start to ring like a bell in wonderful and weird, amazing ways. So we tricked up this piano, and then the song decided it was ready to come. And the thing about and that first thing that you hear in the score is just simply kicking the pedal, putting the pedal up and down on the piano, and letting the strings rise up and down and making the paper just go on the strings. And then when you're at Bundanon, and Deborah's right, you should all go to Bundanon, and at that time of year in summer, you're surrounded by wombats. So you're in a field of wombats, that's their home. So the first little bit of the music, I was just looking at the wombats and I was becoming a wombat, and there's just kind of this little thumping, plodding wombat sound, and then from there they kind of led into the river and into the forest, and the song came out. Yeah.
That just sounds so incredible. And I have these great visuals of you just kind of trying to weave in these books into this piano. How amazing.
It was really exciting. And then, of course, we had the amazing Justin, the sound designer, who wove through all of the sounds of the workshop and
The knife orchestra.
The knife orchestra, the bird life, the insect life around the building.
And can you please explain the knife orchestra, just in case anyone doesn't know quite what you mean?
So I use these little Stanley knives, and I teach other people how to use them because they're so much better than scissors. And they make this excellent clicking sound when you pull the blade in and out. So Justin recorded us all moving the blades in and out of our knives, and it's an extremely pleasant sound, I find. And it's great when there's like 16 people doing it. So we were the knife orchestra.
Amazing. And it sounds like this beautiful beatly,
it's very beatly, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, creation. This is something I really wanted to ask you about because, of course, the Gods of Tiny Things presented downstairs at ACMI is presented as a singular work, but in your exhibition for the National, it's presented as part of creation, which is described as a sprawling, collaborative artwork proposing experimental, ritualised engagements with climate denialism. But you've also spoken about this new work creation as a new religion, involving texts, poetry, dances, costumes and more. Can you please tell us more about your new religion?
Yes.
Big question.
So The Gods of Tiny Things is kind of a prequel in a way. There's a new film called For Creation, which is the sequel to the film that you will see downstairs or have seen downstairs. So The Gods of Tiny Things is a standalone work in a way, but the new film is part of a much, much bigger thing, which is creation. I'm founding a queer, insurrectionary, science fiction, climate change religion. Mainly when I tell people that, they're like, where do I sign up?
I know, right? All of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I could get into religion. This is great.
Yeah. So I have not got a short way to tell you this, or even a screen grab version. Partly because of we see it, I think, with the rise of anti-vaxxers and Trumpism. the way that belief has come completely unmoored from evidence, and people feel that scientific consensus is optional. And so, for instance, we have all the world leaders right now at COP26 betraying us, betraying the whole planet's future, because they are just thinking that the scientific consensus on global warming is optional somehow, that there's going to be an exit clause, that they can disbelieve their ways out of it. So this rise of the irrational and of fanatical belief in barking mad conspiracy theories. Like, apparently, I thought this was a joke, but do you know there are people who really actually believe that giant lizards? Do you know that's true?
Yeah,
so
I had a feeling you were going to mention the giant lizards.
right, yeah. So giant lizards rule the earth. Like, I know they used to.
That's true, yeah.
But anyway, so there are people who believe that secretly giant lizards rule the earth. There are Americans who believe that Australia is fake.
Yeah.
And what about that guy who's, actually I think he's a cult leader now, birds aren't real?
Oh, I've not heard that one.
Pigeons are lying to you?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's fascinating. We're gonna have to
Anyway,
Google
this proliferation of post-rational belief structures is fascinating, terrifying. Fascinating though. Anyway, so I have been thinking about religion and its ongoing hold on the human psyche. And because, trying to talk to a climate denialist about science, they're just totally immune. And I thought, really, to galvanise people's desire for action on climate change and habitat loss, for instance, and the ongoing injustices of the invasion that we are part of, maybe something less rational, more hysterical, more beautiful, more ritual, with better costumes and a disco anthem.
Yeah, there's some.
Oh yeah, there's some of my drawings for the costumes.
Some beautiful drawings of your costumes there.
So the first thing I did was I commissioned a liturgy by the extraordinarily powerful transgender Wiradjuri artist S.J. Norman, who is an amazing writer and has just put out his first book, Permafrost, with UQP. And he wrote this very, very intense, beautiful, gothic, and seriously religious liturgy, which is the soul of creation. And everything in the creation project proceeds from this work. So in it, SJ identifies holy orders, which are personified in a series of costumes. And it's a very dense text. It's reproduced on holy cards, which I'm selling to raise the money to produce a book of creation. And so I sent the liturgy to 8 poets around Australia, and they wrote various responses that Lex Lindsay is turning into, we want to call them hers, but nobody understands that unless you say hymns. So kind of like hymns, except for hers. So there's a series of, here's people singing them with our percussion accompanist, how do you say that word again? Anyway, James Tawadros is there playing what looks like a box, but sounded like a whole orchestra. So there's a series of karaoke videos that we made in the one day between lockdowns that we could legally gather to sing. So we had one day to rehearse and one day to record the videos. So they're a little bit scratchy, but they're beautiful. And there are several more songs coming, and we've been practicing them on Zoom for the whole lockdown, which has been, as I said, horrendous and a total lifesaver. So there's dance moves, and there's plans for more things. There's a film, the animated film, as I mentioned, and hopefully, and there will be a book. Hopefully there will be feasting and protest and ways to gather and to rise against those who would betray the future of our planet and our and life itself on Earth.
It sounds, you know, like creation has this incredible, you know, underneath of all of this kind of radical experimentation and questioning of world leaders and denialists, etc. It sounds like it's got this underlining message of kind of hope and is quite joyful. Do you think that, first of all, do you think that is true? Is that a wise thing to say? And do you think there's hope for us?
My partner often says that she's the silver lining, but I'm the cloud. Because I'm personally quite pessimistic. But there's a lot of joy to be found in fighting for the future. So I'm not especially hopeful, but this work hopes to gather some energy for ongoing struggle, creativity, joy, and gathering.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much. I do have a few questions more, but I thought might be a good opportunity to throw to the audience. Yes.
How do you convert people to your religion?
Excellent question.
What role does proselytizing have?
Are you hoping to convert people, Deborah?
I'm hoping to give people a way to gather. So, kind of, I guess. But like, I'm not the guru or anything, so people can gather around it if it's useful to them.
Do you see yourself as a leader?
No, I guess I have instigated it, so in that way, yes. But I think my role is really as usher. I'm just holding the door open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful.
I'm wanting a little costume for that.
Yeah, you should definitely.
I think it's very visible, the recurring motifs throughout the work, such as this mate, and some symbols like that, just the fire. Do they hold special connotations to you, or is it has become a visual language of sorts? Or?
I think you just answered the question. Yeah, I guess it has special meaning for me, but I'm also trying to harness the great energy of meaning that we share, you know, in shared iconography. So yes and yes.
Yeah, I think it's like reassigning of meaning, right? As things go and change and perceptions change, I suppose. I find it fascinating.
Thanks.
I just also want to say that I love your work.
Thank you very much.
That's very nice.
Thanks.
Was there a question behind?
And there's one over
and
here.
yes.
That's all right, you go first, I'll go next.
Perfect, thank you.
I was just wondering how you took the paper collage to the animator and how that process unfolded in that collaboration.
So it started a long time ago. After the first time I was on this Plan B list that I didn't know existed of artists you could invite to Bundanon when your real artists dropped out. So it turns out that this particular year, it was in 2008, I think, all the artists dropped out because they make you apply like a year and a half before the actual residency. And then the residency comes up and people are like, I'm sorry, I'm like 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Or, that, you know, I've moved to Paris,
Yeah.
etc. So everyone dropped out and the secret list of artists who wouldn't mind being Plan B, they rang me and said, hi, we've awarded you a residency at Bundanon. I was like, oh my God, really? When? And they said, yeah, it starts tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, that's a bit trickier then, because the next day I was supposed to be going on holidays.
Of course.
Of course. But my very kind partner said, "Oh my God, Bundanon, really? Let's cancel the holiday, and I'll take you there. So I'll have the holiday by myself." So my partner went on holidays without me, and I got to go to Bundanon. And for the first time in my life, because I'd never had a studio before, but I had been like cutting out all this stuff since I was a schoolgirl. So I had thousands of images, but I'd never seen them because I just work on a little desk. And because all the other artists hadn't turned up in Bundanon, they opened up the giant 2 studios. So I had this one studio as big as the world and like 24 trestle tables, I think. And I, for the first time, took out all of my cuttings and I saw everything I had cut. And in the 2 weeks I was there, I made, I don't know, like the start of 38 new major works.
Wow.
Collage works, big collage works, which I had never been able to do before. I just had done all these little things. Anyway, so I took them all home and put them under the bed, and I swear I could hear them rustling. They were so full of life. They so badly wanted to dance and have sex with each other.
Well, you put them under the bed
And
then, come on.
yeah, and eat each other. So that actually led to my first animation. So I didn't know how to do it, so I just asked around, who's an animator? And I found these 2 men then, Chris and Christian, who made my first big animated work, Beastliness. And the characters finally got to dance and have sex and perform auto-cannibalism, just as they had longed to do.
Amazing.
Thank you for talking as deliciously as what you actually put on the paper too. I'm finding that I'm writing down a lot of your singular words as much as admiring your art, Deborah. It's sensational. A lot of what you've talked about today, there is this beautiful notion of play. You know, when you talked about collage camp and there not really being an outcome, there's more a provocation and you know, this beautiful music we play. But we do exist in a world, I think no matter what context, you know, there is always this push for outcome, you know, whether it's a grant that you're looking for or a gallery that you're producing something for. And there's nothing like play, and I'm just wondering how you marry or make those 2 have sex, to use some of your own words, to really be able to gift both yourself as an artist and students that you or other artists that you might be facilitating. How do you marry those 2 things together? I find it sometimes impossible, and I'm looking for, I guess, your experience and your tricks, maybe.
I find it impossible myself, really. Like I feel like I fight through a forest of admin to get to the art. So it's mainly I'm just lost in that forest. And getting to do something like Collage Camp, where nobody can make you do your tax, for instance. You know, that's like just days on end when your only task is to do art and make dinner parties and see the wombats. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I have a mentor, kind of, a friend and mentor who is a super duper American artist, who's a collage artist as well. And she has like 5 assistants. And you'd think that that would mean that some of that burden was taken away, but then you have to supervise them and delegate to them. And I think that is just like more art admin and no art. It's really, I do not know how you do it better than that. I just fight for it. I become, you know, really like a tiger about it sometimes, trying to carve out some time in which I do not have to, answer 337 emails.
I should apologise. Some of that admin is definitely coming from us right now. Just full disclosure on that.
Well, but on the other hand, I made this work, finished it in the end of 2019, and I was really hoping that it would have a big life. The fact that this work, The Gods of Tiny Things, got to have a life at all
Thank you.
at ACMI is just such a relief that it was realised in this way, even though it was mainly closed. But, it was also open, and it's the most beautiful installation the work has ever had. So, finally getting to see the work sparkling and, with the special shiny floor.
So that's how we can get in on the next one.
I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Deborah, it is always such a joy to speak to you, and thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us all this afternoon. As I said, we are just so excited to have been able to exhibit your work downstairs, and of course to have been able to get you into the building during such a tricky time. I think we can all give Deborah a very big thank you now.
Thank you.
And really, if you've not seen the work, if you've only seen it once, if you've only seen it 5 times, please go downstairs and see it again before it closes tomorrow. Thank you again for attending.
And you're allowed to roll around on the floor.
Yes.
And be right inside the work.
Yes, that's true.
At least that's what children have been doing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That was cool.